Welcome to the Relocated South African, the show for navigating immigration from South Africa for a better future. I'm your host, Jan Hugo from Lagos in Portugal. Today I'm joined by Lindi Dercksen, all the way from the Gold Coast in Australia. Welcome, Lindi.
Thank you.
The Gold Coast, I know Brisbane, but how far are you from Brisbane?
So we are about 40 minutes south from Brisbane, towards the northern part of the Gold Coast in Australia.
Okay. And originally you're from eManzimtoti?
Yes, born in the Free State and then moved to eManzimtoti when I was 2. And we lived there the rest of my life until we moved here.
Okay. And weather-wise, where you are similar to eManzimtoti?
Very similar, humid, warm summers, warm winters, summer all year long. Yes, very much the same.
Okay. And how long have you guys been in Australia?
We will be, our 2 years anniversary is coming up now. In the first week of April, we would have been here for 2 years.
Wow, it's amazing. It's time flies, I guess. And if I may ask, what made you decide to leave South Africa in the first place?
So I think the main reason for us was definitely our kids and the opportunities that we wanted to give them, that was our main reason. I think it's easy to say that we do it for our kids, but we do it for ourselves as well.
Uh-huh.
In positions where my husband, Bertie, lost his job. He was retrenched where he worked at a refinery for the past 20 years, and he had to then go and look for another job turning 40, and that's not an easy task in South Africa. So I think as much as we say we do it for our kids, we do it for ourselves as well.
Grace, yeah, that is very sensible. Just how old are your kids?
So I've got a almost 10-year-old, let's say 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Okay.
But when we arrived, Lianka was 7 and Malay she just turned 3.
And they love Australia?
They love it. That's all they know.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And if you think back to when you made the decision, I mean, obviously, as you say, what happened with your husband work-wise had a major impact on your decision. Was that kind of the trigger, or how long before you actually left South Africa did you start with the process?
So we had a funny story. We actually paid a deposit for an agent to start the process in 2017. So we paid the deposit in October 2017. About 2018, I would say halfway through 2018, I had a miscarriage. I fell pregnant with our second child. Was before Malay was born. I had a miscarriage, and because of that, we decided to stay with family and to stay close. And yeah, we left it at that. Then we had in KZN, we had looting in 2021. So we had left it. We weren't going to move to Australia. We left it. In 2021, in July, we had looting in KZN. And I think that was probably the drawing point. That was before Bertie had lost his job at the refinery, or before they were starting to talk about retrenching them. And yeah, so then we started up the process again. We got in contact with the agent again. And so that was probably about 2021. That took until 2022, 2023 in March, our visas were granted. So probably like 2 years, I would say, yeah.
Okay, and the decision process, was it a difficult one? Did you sit and weigh up pros and cons when you finally decided, as you say, when you got the visa and you restarted the process? Was it a matter of weighing up pros and cons up to the last minute, or did you just, when you made the call, you said, this is it, we're going?
Yeah, I think in 2017, at the first time round, we were not both convinced. So it was a thing of that roller coaster ride of today, you feel like we're going tomorrow, you feel like, no, we shouldn't. And then the next day, you feel like, no, we need to do this. And then the next day, you feel like you shouldn't. But after the looting, after everything that has happened, we were both convinced. We both knew we weren't looking back. We just had to get it done and get here.
Okay, yeah. I mean, these are difficult decisions. I always say they're not for sissies. People think it's easy to just up and go, but it's not. And I suppose in the process you mentioned his work, but and yourself, you arrived in Australia with work.
So it's amazing because there's so many South Africans in Australia, and so you automatically have contacts with people or people that you can get in contact with. But it was incredible. Before we left, our visas were granted, and then I had an interview with a school in Brisbane. And I actually got the job. I got the position. And then when we arrived here, we took a drive, and we decided we didn't want to end up living in that area, or I wasn't going to send my girls to that school because of the area. And I declined that position, and I had another interview at another school probably the next week, and the week after that I got the job. So I started teaching 3 weeks after we arrived in Australia. Yep.
Oh, wow. And your husband, has he subsequently found work?
Yes, so he started work. We arrived in the beginning of April. He started with a job 8 weeks later.
Wow, that's fantastic. Is that common in Australia? Do South Africans, I mean, you say that there's a lot of South Africans around. Do they have the same experience?
Yes, absolutely. We at the school where I teach, I often laugh and say that I speak more Afrikaans at that school compared to the school that I taught at in eManzimtoti. I've got most probably like 6, 7 South African kids in my class. My husband as well, he works with, I think they're about 3 or 4 South African guys working for the same company. Yeah, it's definitely a thing of there's so much work that coming from South Africa, you feel like you can't leave your job because you're not sure if you will get another job, if you'll find another job. Whereas, people jump between jobs because there's so much work, there's so many options.
Okay, that's quite an important thing for people who are thinking about leaving, that that there is work. I think it's maybe slightly different in European countries. Obviously IT people and that are in high demand, but language is always an issue. If you come to Portugal, you can't speak Portuguese. It's pretty difficult to come and work here.
Definitely.
And the one thing that I've found in all the conversations that we've had so far on this podcast is that a common thread is missing family and missing friends and missing, what they had in South Africa. You still have family in South Africa?
Yes, we do. We don't have any family here. We have all our family still back there.
Okay, and missing them on a daily basis is part of what it is?
Yes, for sure. I think if I had this conversation before we arrived, you came in with the mindset of thinking that it's going, how are you going to survive? How are you going to do every day without your people and your family and your parents and your siblings? But it's funny how now you just kind of cope with it, and it's become part of life, and we phone and we do video chats. And I think it's probably what's more sad for our kids, not being able to grow up with their grannies and their grandpas and their cousins and so on. But we try and call as much as we can. We speak to them every day, daily. Try and look forward to visits, that type of thing. But it is hard. It is definitely, I think that's probably the hardest part about the whole thing, is not having family around.
Yeah, I think that, that, as I say, that's a very common thread. And particularly when you need help, kids get sick, and when you are in South Africa, it's very easy to just call a granny, or it's close by, and now it's a very different story. So, I can totally understand that. What would you say were the biggest challenges to actually leave?
I think probably to make sure that you've got the finances. It costs money. Visas cost money. We were in the fortunate position where my husband got his pension, and we were able to bring that money over. So I think financially it causes a lot of stress when you're not sure of how are you going to set up a new house. We didn't bring anything with us. We didn't bring any furniture. We didn't bring a container over. We came with our 8 bags that we packed, got on the plane, and that's what we had. So we had to really start from scratch with nothing. But then in saying that, I also think that it's amazing how you then realize what you really need, because you just slow down, you just buy what you need. You don't need what you had in South Africa. We live a very much more simpler life than what we did back there. So I think definitely that, and I think something like the day that you greeted everybody at the airport, I think that was huge. That was sad for everybody. It was dramatic. It was emotional. But as soon as we went through the gates, we said, this is it. Now we're looking forward and we're doing this. And then also, obviously, job-wise, to the stress of thinking, are you going to have a job? Will they not back out and not give you a job, surviving until you get your first pay, paying rent up front without any credit record in the country, that type of thing, yeah.
Okay, it's very interesting because my very next question was, tell me about the day you left and you had to go to the airport. That must have been, as you say, that must have been ugly and stressful.
Yeah, it's stressful because you're not sure if in that moment you think, have you done the right thing? Should you still do it? And then you've got the family that's upset and that's sad, and you've got your own kids. It's not just, I often say, if it was just me and my husband who left, I think it's much simpler, the whole process. Now you've got these two kids who have packed up everything that they had. We gave everything away. They've got their little one bag and that's it. And their whole life is packed into that bag. So it's emotional for them. And the more they see you being emotional, it's upsetting for them as well. So you kind of have to be strong for them. But yeah, so what we did is we went to the airport with our family went as well, and we said our goodbyes. Then we greeted each other there, which was obviously very sad. We have luckily seen, my parents have been, my husband's parents have been, so we've seen them. We haven't seen our siblings from the time that we left. But I think, yeah, now we look forward to the times when we do see them, when they do come and visit.
Okay, and for the kids, I mean, they knew they were going somewhere far. Did they concept of forever, does it come into their thinking or don't you? I mean, you're a teacher, you may know what kids think about.
I think maybe with my older one, she kind of understood that it was going to be goodbye and, we're not coming back here to stay. We might go back to visit one day, but we're not coming back to stay. But with my little one being 3 at the time, or just turned 3, she didn't have an idea of what was happening. She'd say goodbye and think we'll see them tomorrow again. But I think it's an emotional thing for them, but kids are so resilient and they are so much stronger than what we think. Mm-hmm. My kids personally have been in a school, the school where I started to work when we just arrived. They were in that school, and then I've since changed to another school with a bit more of a stronger South African community and more South African kids and more South African teachers. So my kids have changed to this school as well. They were actually on the waiting list for this school, the current school. Since we were in South Africa, they just didn't have space. I mean, so they've changed. They've been in 2 schools in Australia already, and they are flourishing. They're happy as can be.
Well, that's fantastic. And one of the things that always comes to mind for me is the question of looking back over your shoulder. Did you or do you have thoughts of, if it doesn't work, we'll go back?
No. So the day we got on the plane, that was it. There's no turning back. There's no going back. Yeah, this is it. We're making it work.
Okay. I think for me, that's one of the most critical things. I always say that when people say, if it doesn't work, we'll go back, it wouldn't work because you're going to go back if you keep a door open, and you've actually got to embrace what you're doing. So that's...
I always have that option. And it was never an option for us to go back. Our kids also know this is our life. This is where we are. We are not going back. My mom will often say, what happens if something happens with one of you? Will the other person come back? And my answer to her is, if I had to go back and live on a teacher's salary and have to look after my 2 kids in South Africa, we would not be able to survive.
Yeah.
Whereas if I live here on a teacher's salary, I can look after my kids.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
And turning to where you are now, I mean, you've mentioned there's quite a big South African community. And do you guys stick together, the South Africans? Do you have other Australian friends as well?
Yep. So I do think the South African people kind of stick together. It's funny, we've even got a WhatsApp group with the South African moms. And I mean, there's probably like 20 odd people on there. And it's not everybody. It's just the people that maybe know each other or that's friends and see each other out of school. Staff-wise as well, teacher-wise as well at this school. Like I said, I speak Afrikaans more there than compared to when I was back in South Africa. So it's definitely more of a South African community. But then you do find schools where you don't have that. So I suppose it just depends on the school. We do have Australian friends. We are quite involved in our church as well. And I think that makes a big difference where you kind of find your place. Our kids are happy at the church. My husband is involved in the worship team. He plays drums in the worship team. We are quite involved in the kids' church. And there we've got a few Australian friends as well.
Okay, that's awesome, because it's great that one will always be a South African, but in a sense you're a visitor in their country now and you've got to embrace their culture as well. So it doesn't mean you have to be an Australian, but you've got to be respectful to them.
No, for sure. Like you said, showing respect towards them. We often laugh and say, you find people that will always say, but in South Africa, we did it this way. But in South Africa, and that's the one thing that they don't like you to do. They don't want you to constantly refer back, but in South Africa, we did it this way. You are here now. You got to embrace that you're in Australia and move on and do it the way they do it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. And another question about life there. The lifestyle is similar, you know, outside and braais and sort of similar to the lifestyle you had in South Africa?
Yes, for sure. Very much the same. I think mainly maybe because of the weather, that's very much the same. Definitely outdoors. I do think that we have a better quality of life. They do value family time more. I would often get given time off to go and attend some of my kids' functions or fun runs or things at school. I do definitely think that they value family time, but very much the same type of lifestyle, yeah.
And it's obviously a subject that comes up in every conversation with South Africans, the safety issue. Are you very aware of that?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, we still, even up to today, I mean, we've been here close to 2 years, we have to pinch ourselves to just realize that we are here and that we are able. Our kids play outside on the grass outside the house. There's no fence, there's no gate. My bedroom window is on the road, literally on the street. It's a different life. It's a completely different life. My kids, if we walk into a shop, my kids are able to go into one aisle and I can go into another aisle. They do not stick with me the whole time. It's very different.
Yeah, I guess that's a thing that we also have battled to. We're almost 5 years that we've been out of South Africa, but that's one thing we still battle to get used to when you see a lady running on her own or a lady cycling on her own out in the country. It's just the concept of physical safety just is not something that these people think about. It really is amazing.
Absolutely not. One thing that was quite huge for my kids, and it sounds like it's a silly thing, but when we arrived, they, for the first month, maybe 2 months, they wouldn't open their windows as we were driving, because in South Africa, they couldn't have their windows open. It was too unsafe. And we had to kind of relearn and reteach them that it's okay to have your window open. It's safe for you to have your window open. You can feel the wind by your window, and there's no one at the traffic light. There's no one that is going to break your window or try and attack you. It's little things like that. Like I said, playing outside I'm in the house, they playing outside on the grass in front of the house without me being there, playing with the neighbors' kids. You see kids riding their bikes outside. You see kids walking to school, riding their bikes to school. I mean, if I think back to in South Africa, we lived behind huge walls, huge gates, electric fencing, had to lock your doors. I can drive on my own to church at night if I have a church meeting. In South Africa, I couldn't drive from home to church. I had to phone my husband as soon as I arrived at church to say that I'm safe there, that I've made it.
Yeah, that's a massive sacrifice that people in South Africa make, and I guess you only realize it when you're on the other side, when you experience the safety. I always say our doors we don't know how to lock our doors. We can't. Yeah. We have electric shutters which we close when we go away, but when we sleep at night, all the doors are open. So it's maybe it's a false sense of security, but it is an amazing thing that you don't even think about it. You know, it's fantastic.
And like you said, it's not. I think you don't realize it until you're on the other side. And it's difficult to explain it to someone because I don't think that they really get it. And even the people here around us in Australia, they can't understand. The other day we were talking to someone and telling them about the electric fence, and they couldn't understand that you would have electric fence around your property. Why? Why would you put that there? They just cannot grasp it. And for us, that was a normal thing. That was every house around our house had electric fence. You had to have it.
Absolutely. And you know, when you talk to South Africans, so many people have had incidents and so on of home invasions or carjackings or that kind of thing. So that
Yeah,
unfortunately leaves a permanent mark on you. And yeah, so that's
for
a
sure.
negative side of South Africa. There's still a lot that's positive, but unfortunately, people make a call and you stick with your call for a
Yeah,
better future.
that's it.
Do you still have lots of contact with friends? I'm not talking family, with friends in South Africa, and people who are maybe not critical, but questioning what you guys did.
Yeah, I think we do have contact with friends back there. I think maybe people don't openly question you, face to face. They might say to each other or think, why did you leave, or how could you leave your family? But I don't think they necessarily question you face to face. I do think people probably judge you along the way. They do question and wonder, how could you leave your family? How are you able to go and live, far away? But the one thing that we've said is there's no use in us staying in South Africa for the sake of my mom and dad, or my mom-in-law and my father-in-law, or our siblings, if in 10 years, 15 years, how many ever years time they are not there anymore. We are stuck there with our kids, and our kids would then leave South Africa, and then we would be left behind because we would be too old to leave the country or to get in here. So I think that was part of our driving thing, is to not be the parents where the kids had left, but to have rather come with. We know people here where they've been in Australia for 30, 35 years. Their kids were 2, 3 years old when they came, and they now have grandkids, and they are able to be with their grandkids in Australia. Whereas my kids' grandkids are back in South Africa because my mom and dad are still there. That type of thing.
And I do believe there are parents who kind of put pressure on their kids not to leave because of
For
them.
sure.
Very selfish. And it's not that they openly put pressure on them, but there's this underlying pressure and people feel that they cannot go. And I think that's so unfair, because you're actually sacrificing the future of your children for your own, selfish reasons. So, yeah, that's very true.
Definitely something that I think, if you can get over that barrier with your family or your close family, I think it takes off so much pressure off the whole situation. So many people come with that burden, and it shouldn't really be a burden. It's actually a blessing to be able to give our kids this.
And just if you're able to do this over again, you're 2 years into the process and you've been there for 2 years, is there anything you would have done differently?
We often say we would have, if I knew what it was going to be like, we would have wanted to come earlier, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. But then I also know that there's a reason why things happen the way they do. There's a reason why we had to have our kids in South Africa, so that they at least knew their grandparents as much as they could before we left. But I think that's probably the only thing, is you often think that people who come over being 21, 22, 23 years old, they have a much bigger advantage than us coming at the age where we came 37, 40 years old, and then having to restart and start over. But then for us, it was worth it. We were willing to take, to make the sacrifice, to forget everything that we've built up there, sold everything that we, built up there, and then to just come and start from scratch.
Very, very interesting observation as well. I was going to say, what advice would you give to someone who is considering immigration now?
I think the first, if you're married, then it would be definitely number one, is both of you need to be on the same page. Both of you need to decide it together. There's no ways that it would work if you're going to another country, going to live in another country, but one person wants to do it and the other person is not sure. For us, that was the number one thing. We would both get on the plane and we would both feel 110% about it, or we won't go. That was definitely number one. And then I'm going to say, when possible, to have the finances. I think it makes it easier. But then in saying that, I've read about people who would come and arrive here with literally nothing, with no money, and they'd still make it. So, I think probably more so to be on the same page.
Okay, that's very important. And you mentioned the idea of coming just with your suitcases. We, on the other hand, listened to other advice, and we arrived with a 40-foot container, which became a 40-foot donation because the furniture didn't fit into the European houses and so on. So I think that for me, if I had to do it again, if I have to advise somebody, just go with your suitcases. Second-hand furniture has no value where we are and where we were. They end up being donated, and go and start over, because we learned that we were just hoarders. We just hoarded stuff. We gave away so much when we left. I'm not sure if it was the same in your case.
Yeah, no, the exact same. Maybe I can add that if we would have to do it again, that's the one thing that we would definitely do again, is not bring anything. Again, like you said, there's so many people around us who brought their containers and they literally have nothing left because they've sold it. In Australia, they put the secondhand furniture on the streets, and there's a certain day in a week or in a month that you are allowed to put it on the street. And then if you take a drive, people have finished their houses completely with secondhand things from other people that they've given away. And very often that's South African people who, like you said, the houses are much smaller. The living room couches, they don't fit, or the tables don't fit, or the beds doesn't fit. Yeah, definitely we wouldn't want to change that in bringing anything with.
Okay, and maybe just one last question is, it's twofold. What do you miss most about South Africa, and what do you appreciate most about Australia?
Okay, appreciate about Australia, easy, safety. Being able to go out, drive at night, kids play outside, and sleeping well at night, not waking up with the alarm going off, not waking up with load shedding and it's dark, not waking up with being worried if there's someone in your yard. So definitely safety. And then what we miss about South Africa, I would think, is the food. The Australian food is very bland, doesn't taste like much for us. Probably needs more salt, I don't know. But we definitely miss a good Spur burger or a Wimpy burger.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lindi. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your experiences. I really enjoyed chatting to you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed hearing about our experience of relocating from South Africa, why not subscribe to the show so you can hear more from people who have left South Africa for a better future abroad. Thanks, and until next time.